Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, well, so in this episode, I thought I'd try to say something about the French philosopher Alain Badiou and his book In Praise of Love, a book which is essentially a dialogue between Badiou and the journalist Nicolas Trouin. Now, basically what Badiou does there is he mounts a kind of passionate defense of love in a time when he thinks that love is being threatened from all directions. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, so what Badiou does in Praise of Love is he starts off by saying, as I just mentioned, that love faces threats from all sides today. Okay, well, so what does this mean exactly? Well, on the one hand, he talks about the proliferation of dating sites and what it is that they're doing to our conception of love. He mentions some of their marketing slogans. And here I think he's talking about a specific site in France. But anyway, the slogans run like this: get love without chance, and be in love without falling in love, and get perfect love without suffering. Now, Badiou calls this the safety first concept of love, and love with an insurance policy. Basically, it's a love relationship protected from all risk and from any kind of chance encounter. That's to say, by knowing everything about your prospective partner beforehand, his or her tastes and political views and their favorite Netflix episodes or whatever, your eventual selection will be both perfectly risk and chance-free. Okay, well, whatever this is, it isn't real love, Badiou thinks. We need to rescue love from dating sites. No, real love doesn't come without some kind of unpredictability and some intensity. Safe, risk-free love is just no love at all. To promote the idea that you can have love without risk is like promoting the idea of a zero-dead war, he says. Okay, well, so that's one threat to love. But there's another kind of threat, Badiou thinks. And unlike the first one, which at least sees the power and the danger of love but wants to guard against it, this other view, it doesn't even acknowledge this more powerful aspect of love. And that's the view, also becoming more prevalent today, he thinks, that love isn't really that important or that it can be reduced to just enjoyment and comfort. That it can be narrowed down to mere safe serial pleasures. Now, this is a love without challenge. It's a love without the genuine experience of another person in all of their integrity and their otherness. What this love is really just a form of, or variant of, hedonism. It's a relationship that avoids the deep and the challenging and just happily coasts on the surface of things. It lacks the risk and the adventure Badiou thinks is a constituent of genuine love. Okay, now, you know what? I should mention that in his own construction of love, I think Badiou takes his cue from Plato, at least in part. You see, for Plato, love has in its seed always the promise of something higher. More specifically, it has an impulse towards the idea of beauty and truth. So, for Plato, something seemingly benign or trivial, like being attracted to somebody's body, well, that's, whether we know it or not, that's always a movement towards something greater. A greater beauty and a greater growth of some kind. I don't know, maybe another way to put this is that for Plato, even though we're not aware of it at the time of its source, our early physical attraction to a body is rooted in a profound metaphysical instinct. In other words, our first or primordial impulse, sexual desire, is directed towards nothing less than being itself, which is to say the steadfast and the eternal. In other words, desires of the body then are never just desires of the body, but are informed by the spiritual. Or to put it another way, our love is ultimately always for the sake of something higher and more real than that on which it is currently focused. It's always for what is best and most beautiful that lies ahead in the future. Well, that's pretty amazing, right? But anyway, that's Plato. But the question is, how does Badiou appropriate him? What is Badiou taking from Plato's view here, and how is he using it for his own view on love? Well, basically, I think that Badiou draws from Plato in this idea that what love is it's expansive. That is, what it does is it pulls us out of ourselves and allows us to experience what is different from us. As Badiou himself says, in genuine love, we experience the world from the perspective of difference and not from identity. Love is ego-transcending and opens us up to a world that is not of our own, certainly not of our own reflection. And this is partly because what love does is it opens us up to a world that one experiences from the point of view of two people, not one. As Badiou says, we now see through the prism of our difference, through two subjectivities. So the experience of love is decentering. It moves us away from ourselves and from just asserting our own identity at every turn. And in all of this, there's also a movement away from inwardness to outwardness, and then to construction, to the making of life together in two. Actually, no, this idea that love is a construction, a project together, is really important for Badiou. You see, the usual romantic myth about love is that love can be reduced to the first encounter. You know, where love is consummated and consumed in the first meeting. You know, the Romeo and Juliet type thing. But what Badiou wants to say is that love is not that. It's a creative project that lasts. It's not the insular, isolated, inward, an extremely brief relationship between Romeo and Juliet. No, it's an intimately collaborative construction that meets the obstructions of the real world and triumphs over them in a lasting way. Actually, this is part of what's so incredible about the whole process of love for Badiou. What's so incredible about it is that it's essentially something that starts off as chance, as something wholly contingent. You know, you meet somebody randomly out of the blue, but then it turns into something that seems held together by necessity. Something that takes on the appearance of destiny, to quote Badiou. In other words, how can something that was at one time so arbitrary and unpredictable now become so steadfast and guaranteed? It's incredible, right? Actually, you know what? In a way, this reminds me a little bit of what the philosopher Hannah Arendt said about the importance of keeping promises. You see, for her, if you don't make the past and the future a part of the present by remembering what you said to someone and intending to follow through with it, then you allow unpredictability and meaninglessness to rule. Maybe another way of saying this is that basically what making a promise to someone does is it preserves the past and so ensures that the future is going to be reliable, that it becomes something that you can count on. It builds a bridge from the present to the future. And so obviously then breaking a promise does the very opposite. It denies the reality of the past, and so it denies the hope of any future. It collapses all bridges. So for Arendt then, making promises relates us to the future in such a way that it creates for us, as she says, islands of certainty in the midst of a larger sea of uncertainty. In fact, Arendt says that making promises is actually the greatest remedy for unpredictability. And what she means by this is that without being bound by our promises, we would just be wandering around all alone, completely aimless and in the dark. Well, okay, so maybe this is part of love's secret. The chance encounter is great, sure, but it's the promise to commit and to love that turns a whimsical and an unpredictable beginning into a love that now takes on the appearance of a shared destiny that looks as if it had been necessary all the while. Anyway, I think something like this is not too far from what Badiou is saying. I mean, I don't think he uses the word promise too much, but he does use similar words like fidelity. In other words, this transition from chance to destiny requires a resilience that's only possible through fidelity and commitment. It's through fidelity that we defeat the randomness of an encounter. You know, now that I think about it, all this sort of reminds me of a quote from the Old Testament, the Song of Songs. What it says in that book is this. It says, "Love is as strong as death." Now, this is a great quote, right? But what does it mean exactly? Well, who knows for certain? But it does make me think of what it is Badiou is saying. And that is that to promise and to commit and to love is empowering, is to take fate into our own hands, and so to assure that we remain hopeful and equal to life's vicissitudes. As the author of the Song of Songs suggests, love is really as close as we can get to creating permanence in a cosmos marked by destruction and death. Bye for now.